Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, preseason odds, over under on wins, who's going to win MVP? What does all of this say about the Lakers? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel. Andy, many of whom are taking stock of where the Lakers are and what the Lakers might accomplish this year. And to that end, we do have some interesting numbers from our friends over at FanDuel. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting the way we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus. That's right. There is something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Speaking of FanDuel, Andy, and we really appreciate their support here on the network. We're kind of diving into the off-season summertime odds, because if you want a good way to take stock kind of broadly of what people think about the league, this is kind of a good way to do it. You know, we've got some DPOY odds, rookie of the year odds, obviously MVP, where the Lakers are on that. But I want to start with wins, because that's kind of the center of all of this stuff. The early line for the Lakers, 43.5 from our friends at FanDuel.
43.5, and that would put them, by the way, in the West in a three-way tie for the 9 and 10 seeds. They also have the Warriors and the Rockets at 43.5. As far as the Western Conference goes, from the top descending, FanDuel has the Thunder leading the way with 56.5 for the over-under, Minnesota at 52.5, Denver 51.5, Dallas 50.5, Memphis and Phoenix both at 47.5, the Kings at 46, the Pelicans at 45, and then we get to, again, the Lakers, Warriors, and Rockets at 43.5. 3.5 games. Obviously, this is not an exact science for how games are played and when won or lost, but 3.5 below last season's win total of 47, which we will get into all the reasons why. But clearly, the folks over at FanDuel, and I would imagine, because I've seen like ESPN's, I've seen other casinos and such, the general consensus is there's an expectation of the Lakers coming down from last season's total.
Yeah, and if you don't like that number, 43.5, at least you're not breaking this down on Locked On Clippers. Clippers are at 40.5, so a sub 500 projection for those guys. If you're looking at the Lakers and you're saying to yourself, well, why would you take a team that won 47 was last year?
Yeah,
47 games last year, are much to the disappointment of everyone, bringing back the same team, and 147 with arguably coaching as a hindrance to their win total and some pretty significant injuries. Why would you pick them to win 3.5 fewer games? I think the argument is very similar in some ways to what Vegas is really, I think, implicitly saying about the Clippers, which is we don't trust that LeBron and AD, who played a lot of games last year, are going to duplicate that this year. I think first and foremost, that's what that win projection says.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the foundation of it. I think you can start peeling back the layers of the purple and gold onion further and say that it's a bet that D'Angelo Russell, playoff issues aside, we're talking about regular season. Last year, he had maybe his career best regular season ever. And the idea that he can't repeat that, you could argue that Rui, upon entering last year's starting lineup, that might have been a career best for him. Maybe it's them saying Austin Reeves has no levels left to climb. Like, for all intents and purposes, this is the fully baked version of Reeves, or that JJ Redick won't make enough of a difference as a coach this season, whether because of inexperience, growing pains, the roster, or just the West is so deep and so tough, you have to be actively ascending just to maintain status quo.
And I think that is fair. And the other thing too is like, I think, there are always teams that end up winning a few more. Like these preseason over-unders and stuff do tend to compress in terms of, and sort of squeezing towards the middle. That tends to be how they work. But like the ability for the Lakers to pile up wins in the regular season, I just think there is a limit to that. I think even when things are going well, there's a limit to it because they have to really walk a line between pushing their stars and leaning on their stars and backing off. And every team is going to suffer some degree of injuries, and every team is going to miss some games from their stars. And the question is whether or not the Lakers have enough of a supporting cast, a consistency in their supporting cast, to be able to elevate them in ways you will need to in order to get to 52, 53, 54 wins. I think it's a legitimate question. I mean, I would take the over right now on 43.5, but I don't know if I'd take it. If it was 45.5, I don't know if I'd be as confident.
I would definitely take the over on 43.5. In part because, I guess I'm just more bullish about the regular season prospects for this team if they maintain health. And, the idea also too that, that push-pull of how much you push yourselves. It's kind of like we talked about last year with the idea of, there was going to be the games minimum in order to qualify for awards, and how much would that affect players around the league. And, obviously in a lot of ways it was a conversation about Kawhi Leonard, but Anthony Davis and LeBron James are part of that conversation too. And what I said then, and I still believe now, is as much as I've talked about the pacing that goes on with LeBron for the first 50 to 60 games of the year, and you have to be cognizant of, how you use AD and all that stuff, I didn't expect either one of them to be load managed the way we often talk about load management, because the West is too hard.
Yeah.
I expect it to be exactly the same this year. There's going to be more, I think, push than pull, because if you want to keep up with the Joneses in the West, you kind of have no choice.
I wonder how they'll look at it, because I don't think there's a planet in which the Lakers push, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Denver, whatever, for like really push them to be on that upper elite part of the West. I mean,
maybe, but put a pin in Denver. I won't, because they are a team.
I forget. Denver's offseason changes and all that kind of stuff. But whoever you perceive to be, OKC, Minnesota, Denver's still projected at over 50 wins, but we'll see. Dallas, if they can keep up their momentum, whatever it is, it'd be hard for the Lakers to be in that top 2 or 3. I think the push really is going to be, how can we be out of the play-in?
Yep.
Or at the very least, how can we put ourselves in a position where the playoffs don't start in February? Because that really, as much as anything, has the capacity to limit. Healthy LeBron, healthy Anthony Davis. The Olympics are not, as we discussed earlier in the week, are not a perfect analog. But short series, when both of those guys can crank things up or whatever it might be, they are still a very formidable duo. And even last year against Denver, not to completely rehash the whole, like they were not super close to winning the series, but they were competitive in games in that series. If you want to be able to maximize that, it would be nice to not have to play proverbial balls to the wall starting in February. Like, it would be nice to be able to, if you need a game, if you need to rest a guy, if it's better for like to play that long game a little bit. But to do that, you need to be a 4, 5, or 6.
Yeah, they got to get off to a good start. And when we get back to, I do think that there is a certain benefit of the doubt that has been not given to the Lakers, that has been curiously given to a few other teams in the West. So if nothing else, worth mentioning, when we get back. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We love them so much, we never want those sports to stop, but it's the summer. You have fewer games. The sports are not sportsing like we want them to, but FanDuel lets you, lets me, lets everyone keep the sports going whenever we want. All you got to do is just open up the app, dream up some bets whenever you're in the mood. You got baseball, you got WNBA, there's still some Olympics going on, and as we have been discussing, 24-25 odds for the NBA season upcoming. As of this recording, these are things we're going to discuss. Lakers 35-1 to win the championship. AD 150-1 for MVP. LeBron 200-1. Dalton Knecht 10-1 for Rookie of the Year. Max Christie 150-1 for Most Improved Player. And this summer, FanDuel hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Thanks for making Locked On Lakers first listen of the day. For your second, how about Locked On NBA? There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed or entertained as Locked On NBA, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Andy, you found another little something that you found interesting?
Yeah, maybe this is the homer in me coming through, the defensive Laker fan coming through, but it's obvious that there is a lack of benefit of the doubt given to the Lakers for the health of LeBron and AD this upcoming season. And I get it, that is fair to worry about, because Lord knows the everydayers are aware that
I can't watch the Olympics, Andy, because I'm concerned about them getting hurt.
Sure, exactly.
I can only watch non-basketball events.
Right. So totally fair. But Phoenix at 47.5, I feel like there's been a curious benefit of the doubt afforded to the Suns, because all three of their big three miss games. You look at the construction of their lineup, they're likely going to be very small. Like, Tyus Jones is a luxury at the veterans minimum, and they need someone to organize, but he is small for a starting point guard. And unless they sell Bradley Beal on coming off the bench, that means Grayson Allen's defense and shooting won't be there to start games. But even like Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, KD, and Yusuf Nurkic, that starting lineup is going to hemorrhage points. The Grizzlies, their potential is there, but they got a lot of question marks for a team that jumped that high too. Ja, Brandon Clark, Desmond Bane, they have not been healthy for full seasons in a while. Zach Edey may be the Rookie of the Year frontrunner. We may get into that coming up, but there could be some growing pains there. They have no true center depth at all around him. So any difficulties adjusting or an injury or whatever, they're very small. Denver lost KCP. They're thin off the bench and lack an identity so much they brought in Russell Westbrook to help them build it. Like Christian Braun has
that like it's a negative, Andy, to bring in Russ.
Christian Braun has a lot on his shoulders stepping into that starting lineup. Jamal Murray is coming off a subpar regular season last year, a pretty mediocre playoffs, save 2 game winners against the Lakers, which obviously massive, but his overall playoffs against the Lakers, he was not looking like Jamal Murray from last year. He's had
he wasn't great. He wasn't great in subsequent games.
And he's been bad in the Olympics, and health is always an issue for Murray. And if he doesn't get this impending extension, that could hang over the season. Jokic could get taxed. Like, it feels like Denver is at like a crossroads season very quickly after being talked about as a potential dynasty. So I find the benefit of the doubt for certain teams interesting that the Lakers didn't get. I'm not saying they hate the Lakers or blah, blah. It's nothing like that.
And to be fair, in betting markets, the tendency is always to inflate.
Oh yes,
the numbers and stuff for the Lakers, because people will just, bet it. Like, for example, not to, I spell, Bronny James is on the board for Rookie of the Year. I mean, the odds are long. He's a plus 30,000. So what is that? 300 to 1 or something like that, which, by the way, is still way too good for LeBron, for Bronny to win Rookie. LeBron has about the same odds to win Rookie of the Year as Bronny does. So, but the point being, like, things are done to encourage Lakers fans to put their money down. But to your point, like, I get what you're saying. I think you can make an argument that maybe Houston deserves a little bit more. Like, some team always makes a little bit of a jump. Like, Houston is well poised to do something like that if they stay healthy. Memphis, while I agree with you, they are small and Zach Edey's unproven and all that, they are also a team that the year before won 50 something games. Like, they're really good, and they have a roster that's quite good. I think the placement of the Lakers is fair. I think Denver could slide, instead of a big 3 at the top of the conference, maybe you're looking at a big 2. I think if they're healthy, the odds of Oklahoma City not winning the conference, being the number 1 seed, are pretty low. I think they are an overwhelming favorite for that.
As they should be.
For a lot of different reasons. But, I think the skepticism is, I think it's about right. I think, like, they are in a clump of teams that within 2 or 3 games you can look at and be like, that's about right. Like, the Kings, the Lakers, the Pelicans, the Warriors, the Rockets, they're basically all, the Suns. If you want to include the Suns and the Grizzlies, you're talking about 4 games for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Western Conference teams.
And look, to be fair, 47.5 is down from Phoenix last year. Like I said, I just found it interesting. I'm not complaining about it. In the end, none of this necessarily, it's more interesting to talk about than something that actually matters.
Here's where I think you're probably right. Well, again, I would take the over on 43.5.
So would I.
I'm not sure I'd take it, again, 45, 46, 47, maybe not, but 43.5, I would definitely take that over. I do think this is where the vibes of the offseason probably play against the Lakers. There is the perception that the Lakers got worse by not getting better at a time where you need to get better to maximize the LeBron AD window, because they're obviously not good enough yet to really be a Western Conference contender, but they're obviously not bad enough to be a lottery team and join the flag sweepstakes and all that kind of stuff. And the perception is that by doing nothing, they've gotten significantly worse. That's not true. They are the exact same team, swapping out Dalton Knecht for Taurean Prince, which is, I think, probably in the grand scheme of things, a relative wash, and Darvin Ham for JJ Redick, which I hope is worth a win or two, but is not probably going to be worse. Like, I don't think the vibes around the team this year and all that stuff, and the execution of the rotation, all that, are going to be worse this year than they were last year. So, in that sense, I agree with you that they're not being given the benefit of the doubt, and that the offseason vibes would tell you, because the Lakers are on all these biggest losers of the offseason list or something, that they really got worse. Denver got worse. Denver lost important players that made them worse. They might recover, they might not. The Lakers didn't get worse. They got exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are other teams around the league also that got worse. And again, we'll see how all this shakes out. There is reason to have concerns about the Lakers. I just found sort of how the varying degree shook out, again, in the way these odds were laid out, interesting.
It's fair. No, that's a fair point that you're making. What do the individual odds say both about the players, Andy, and the prospects of the team at large? We'll talk MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and even Coach of the Year next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day, but I bet often you end up skipping therapy day when you're schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, stuff around the house, it becomes difficult to keep all of your priorities in order. As much as it can feel impossible at times, the non-negotiables are extremely important. You got to make that time for yourself. Therapy is more important than ever. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what other people have, so you can start living your best life. I can personally speak to how talking with a professional therapist helped me and my family during a really difficult period, helping us better communicate with each other, figure out compromises that don't leave you feeling unfulfilled or unheard. And therapy can be a different, great experience for everyone. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited for your schedule, and visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
So when you start, real quick, we should mention Lauri Markkanen, as expected, signed his big extension. He's a max extension with the Jazz. He cannot be traded this year because 6-month moratorium on moving a guy with this sort of extension, which means 6 months ends the day after the trade deadline. That is not accidental. I did see a lot of people wondering, what is Utah doing? Why would they do this? All this kind of stuff. Because we mentioned one of the teams we did not mention in this Western Conference over-under race were the Jazz. I think 27.5 is where they are. I think they're probably a little better than that, but not by a ton. Why would they do that to preserve a team? And I think the answer, to me at least, is Markkanen is too good to potentially just sort of risk letting get away for nothing. We've learned over and over and over again, tanking for the number one pick guarantees you nothing. I realize there's more than one good player in the draft this year, but and if you're better off with the asset, a player like Markkanen, who maybe not is the best player on a championship team, but could certainly be a 2 or a 3. And these guys all make max money at this point. If you can't get the return you want now, you're much better off holding on to the asset, waiting a year. You're probably not going to get Cooper Flagg anyway. And
just because the odds don't favor it for anybody.
So, it's not the NFL where you can just, win one game or 2 games or something and make sure you get that top pick. Can't do that in the NBA. So, were I the Jazz, I would have done the same thing. Keep the guy around. Maybe you can add to it and make yourself competitive. Otherwise, you can trade him next year. That's my reaction.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing too. I mean, especially for a team like Utah that can't ever plan on getting free agents. If you have a player of Lauri Markkanen's caliber in your
house, who likes
house,
it there,
right? Who likes it there? He's in your house. Even if you don't necessarily anticipate a long-term future with him for whatever reason, you need to make sure that you maximize the fact that he was with you in the first place.
You certainly can't trade him for what you feel to be a lesser value. So I get it from their perspective, but it could at least shake loose some stuff because now he's off the board. The Warriors still want to make, so there aren't a whole lot of big things to happen. But the fact that Markkanen can't be traded at all this year will add a lot of clarity to whatever moves are coming.
I think most eyes right now will now be on Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans as far as the biggest name that feels unsettled.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. So another proxy to figure out what people think about your team is to look at some of these individual player awards. As we all know in the NBA, it is real hard to win certain awards if your team isn't good. So if you can't find your favorite player on the MVP list, it probably means that people think your team is going to suck. And to that, I'm sorry to break it to you, fans of Cam Thomas. But to that end, LeBron and AD are both on the board, but they are on the board with team infused skepticism to their odds, I would say.
Well, it's interesting. It depends on how you look at it. Like Anthony Davis is the highest among Lakers. He's at 150 to 1 for MVP. He is even with Jaylen Brown and Tyrese Halliburton, just behind Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker. And then LeBron is at 20 to 1, and he's even with Dame and De'Aaron Fox. But other than Phoenix with KD and Booker, and the Celtics with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, there are no teams in the league with two guys as high as LeBron and AD. So, like a lot of things with the Lakers, it depends on how you look at it, and how much is your inner faith. How strong are your guts? Because that tandem is still, when healthy, even if I've talked about before, I don't think they're as easy to build around as they used to be. Still pretty damn good.
And I will say this: if we get to December, January, and it's looking like the Lakers are exceeding expectations, and hey, this team could win 50 games, get your money on LeBron or AD quickly, because the storyline around that, particularly LeBron, a 50-win Laker team, almost
40-year-old LeBron.
Yep. That kind of thing is catnip for NBA writers.
Oh yeah.
I trust me. I know these people.
We've done this for years.
We are these people.
Yep. We are among them because we are them.
I know what sugary snacks NBA writers enjoy.
Absolutely.
And so, like, to that degree, it's like, JJ Redick is on the coach of the year. Everybody, I think, is on the coach of the year list.
I couldn't find Kenny Atkinson for whatever reason. Maybe I just missed him. He was the only guy of note that I didn't see. And Mike Budenholzer is with Phoenix. He's the only new coach to his team that is getting better coach of the year odds than JJ Redick. For whatever that is worth. Redick is ahead of Charles Lee. He's ahead of JB Bickerstaff. He is Brian Keith.
And I think that reflects that the Suns are projected to be a better team.
Sure.
But there are a couple guys like in our printout that are a little hard to read, so maybe that's part of it. But again, like if you're waiting around for Jordy Fernandez to win, that's probably not going to happen. But
Brian Keith.
Yeah, if the Lakers are looking like they're going to, projected to win 50, 51 games, 52 games or something like that. All of a sudden, the chatter around JJ, oh my God, first time head coach and this and that, whatever. It's like, that is going to be a really compelling story. So there are opportunities for the Lakers.
Yeah, if you're bullish on the Lakers, bet on Redick now because he's at 30 to 1. The odds are only going to get worse.
The other one that is always interesting is Anthony Davis with DPOY, because that is less record dependent than many other awards. And he's up there, and he's got a I think he's considered, I think, one of the favorites. But still, behind like guys like Jaren Jackson, right behind Jaren Jackson, right.
Wemby is the front runner by a pretty wide margin right now. You got to bet around $200 to win 100 for Wemby. Then Rudy is at 12 to 1, Chet Holmgren 15 to 1, Bam and Jaren Jackson Jr. are tied, and then you got
20.
8 at 20, and then you got 80 at 25 to 1, just ahead of Evan Mobley at 30 to 1. In what can only be described as a shocking development, the Lakers have nobody else on the board.
Right. It is one of the reasons we mentioned the why we think the Thunder are going to have a pretty, ought to kind of comfortably be the number one seed. They have three guys on what you'd sort of consider to be the front page of the board for DPOY. Like Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, and Lugens Dort, all on the sort of proverbial first page here. Like that is an indication of how hard it is going to be to score against this team. Hartenstein is on the board. So they've got like 5 guys on their roster who are on the board for DPOY. It's pretty insane.
They should be a really good team.
They should be really, really good. And I hope, I really want Anthony Davis to win a DPOY. Like I don't think he ever will. It's hard to come by, but I just feel like it's something. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. But Anthony Davis, I feel like him not winning a Defensive Player of the Year award is one of these things where you're going to look back like 10 years after he retired and be like, that's stupid. Like that this didn't happen is kind of a dumb thing.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that happens all the time. It's the Hollywood equivalent of how Al Pacino ends up winning his Oscar for Son of a Woman when it was
but I'm okay. Give Anthony Davis a Son of a Woman like award
Sure.
where it's like this isn't the right year for him to win, but it's like it's okay because of all the other stuff.
Yeah, look, that when Kobe won MVP in 2008, Kobe had an incredible season. He was really good, deserving of it or whatever, but it was considered at the time a bit of a makeup because he should have won in 2006 because that season he was absolutely bonkers. He was just incredible. A couple other ones real quick before we end up going. Dalton Knecht is in a 4-way tie at 10-1 for Rookie of the Year. Zach Edey is the front runner, followed by Reed Shepherd with the Rockets and Zachary Richer with Atlanta. The 4-way tie is Alex Sarr with the Wizards, Basellis with the Bulls, Stephon Castle with Spurs, and Dalton Knecht. Knecht, what I think is interesting about this is depending on what you consider the Grizzlies and I guess maybe the Rockets' trajectories, Knecht is the highest up for Rookie of the Year on a team with actual aspirations. Yep. So if nothing else, it speaks to some expectation that this guy is really going to play a lot.
He's going to play a lot, I think, and it's Shepherd to me. If you're looking for a Laker to put money on, like where you think you might actually win, I think that's the spot. Connected.
And then Max Christie is at the bottom of the most improved player list. And first of all, Vic Wembanyama is the clubhouse leader.
He's like Wembanyama is like 6th or 7th in MVP, the leading odds for DPOY, and the leading odds for most improved, which he would certainly win if he won MVP. Which definition you can realistically put down a parlay on 3 awards for Wembanyama, and it's not totally insane.
No, like it feels like it's already becoming his league, and it doesn't feel premature to say it. But what I think is interesting about Christie at 150-1 for MVP, again, at the bottom in a tie with a smorgasbord of players ranging from Kyle Kuzma to Aaron Nesmith to DeAndre Ayton to Jamal Murray to, I guess, Ben Simmons if he decided to play this year.
It's a grab bag of NBA players.
And it's always, most improved player is always weird and difficult to figure out what people are even looking for. But I do think it speaks to noticing that Max Christie got this deal. He is expected to play. He's the only deal the Lakers made this offseason that you could argue was even mimildly surprising.
I would love to hear that JJ Redick put $50K on Max Christie to win most improved. like that to me would be good news for Lakers fans.
I feel very good about that.
I wish Darvin had done that last year.
Yeah, I know the problem is he put $200,000 on Cam Reddish as most improved player. And nobody won on that one. No. But I think it speaks to, if nothing else, people taking notice that, or really, he put down $200K on Taurean Prince
for MVP.
That also didn't pay off. But there is an expectation.
Money last year.
There is. It's very fortunate for him that the Lakers are going to be paying him for a while anyway. But there's an expectation that Max Christie is going to play, be a part of this rotation, and that he's got an opportunity in front of him.
Yeah. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers. Thanks again for making Locked On Lakers first listen today. Go check out Locked On NBA, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with local perspective. You can find the link to the Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll see everyone Friday.